I remember the exact moment my world tilted. I was standing in our kitchen, holding a plain white envelope. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The paper felt thin, too light for what it would reveal. My name was typed on the front. No return address, just Stephen Carter in simple black ink. My wife, Chloe, was humming in the living room. She didn't know I had the mail yet. She didn't know that a stranger had sent me proof. Proof that her decision to sell my mother's car wasn't just heartless, it was catastrophic. Let me rewind. Let me tell you how I got here. My name is Stephen Carter. My mother, Eleanor, passed away 6 months ago. Cancer. It was fast, and it left a hole in my life the size of Texas. She lived just 2 streets over from our place in suburban Chicago. We were close, really close. After she was gone, her car stayed. A 2002 blue Honda Accord. The paint was fading near the rear bumper. There was a small dent on the passenger side door from a shopping cart. To anyone else, it was just an old car. To me, it was a time capsule. I'd go sit in it sometimes, usually after a tough day at work. I'm a high school history teacher. The kids can be great, but some days the weight of it all gets to you. I'd open the driver's side door, and her smell would hit me. Not a strong perfume, but that soft floral scent she always wore, like lilacs after the rain. Her rosary was still hanging from the rearview mirror. The blue beads were faded from years of sun. The driver's seat was pushed all the way forward because she was so petite. I'm 6'2". I could never actually drive it comfortably. I'd just sit there. The steering wheel still had the slight impression from her hands. It was my quiet place, my way to feel close to her. Chloe never understood. My wife is a practical woman. She's an accountant. She sees the world in numbers, in balance sheets. Emotions are variables she can't quite calculate. It's just a car, Stephen, she'd say, maybe once a week. It's sitting there, gathering leaves. We could use the driveway space. My sister is visiting next month. It's not just a car, I'd tell her, my voice quiet. It's hers. It's a liability, she'd counter. The registration, the insurance, it's an expense for something that doesn't run right. She was right about that. The engine would sputter sometimes. It needed work I hadn't gotten around to doing. I was afraid if I fixed it, it would stop being her car and start being mine. The fights were never loud. They were these cold, quiet tensions that would settle over our house for days. She'd stop making eye contact. I'd spend more time out in the driveway, just sitting in that old Honda. Then, last Tuesday happened. I came home from school. It had been a long day. We'd been grading midterm exams. I pulled my own car into the street because something was wrong. There was an empty space where the Honda was always parked. At first, my brain didn't process it. I just stood there on the sidewalk, my briefcase in my hand, staring at the patch of oil-stained concrete. The space was empty, truly, completely empty. My heart started thudding, a dull, painful rhythm in my chest. I walked into the house. Chloe was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. She looked up and smiled, a normal, everyday smile. "Hey, honey, how was your day?" "Where's the car?" My voice was a rasp. It didn't even sound like me. She put the knife down, wiped her hands on a towel. Her expression was careful, neutral. "The Honda?" "Chloe, where is my mother's car?" She took a slow breath. "I sold it, Stephen. It's time. We need to move forward. I listed it online this morning, and a man came by with a tow truck a few hours ago. He gave me $1,500 cash." The room swam. I had to put a hand on the counter to steady myself. "You sold it? You sold her car? Without talking to me?" "It was a conversation we kept having," she said, her voice firm. "You weren't listening. You were living in the past. This is good for us, for you. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. The air left my lungs. She had erased a piece of my mother from the world while I was teaching about the Civil War. She had made a financial transaction with my grief. I didn't yell. I couldn't. The hurt was too deep, too quiet. I just turned and walked out of the kitchen. I went up to our bedroom and closed the door. I didn't come out for the rest of the night. I laid in the dark and tried to remember the exact pattern of the cracks in the Honda's leather seats. The next few days were ice. We moved around each other in the house, like ghosts. We didn't talk about the car. We didn't talk about much of anything. She thought she'd done the right thing. I knew she had broken something between us that might not ever get fixed. Then, today, the envelope came. I found it in the mailbox when I got home from work. Just that plain white envelope with my name on it. I took it inside and stood at the kitchen counter, right where she told me the car was gone. My fingers trembled as I tore it open. Inside wasn't a letter. It was a single folded piece of lined notepad paper. And tucked inside the fold was a small silver key. I unfolded the paper. The handwriting was a man's, loopy and rushed. "Mr. Carter, my name is David. I bought your wife's old Honda. I'm a mechanic, fixing it up for my daughter. When I was detailing the interior, I found this key taped underneath the driver's side sun visor. There was a tiny piece of masking tape with it that said, 'Stephen, for when I'm gone.' I thought you should have it. I'm sorry for your loss. Oh, David." I stared at the key. It was small, old-fashioned. A locker key? A safe deposit box key? My mother had taped it there. For me. She knew she was sick. She knew the car would eventually come to me. She left me a message, a final piece of her. And Chloe had sold it. She had sold it without a second thought, nearly throwing away my mother's last words to me. If David hadn't been a good man, an honest man, I would never have known. This key would be lost forever. I looked at the key in my palm. It felt cold, heavy with meaning. This was it. This was the moment I realized it was never just a car. It was a connection. And my wife had severed it without a moment's hesitation. I'm standing here now, holding this key, and my whole life feels different. The trust is gone. The understanding is gone. It's just me, this key, and the ghost of my mother's perfume. I keep wondering how far this is going to go, what this key will unlock. It feels like my life is about to change all over again. I look at this key, and I see my past and my future colliding. You know, it's strange, telling this story to a screen. I wonder if anyone out there gets it. I wonder if anyone has ever felt a betrayal this quiet, this deep. I find myself imagining where you all are listening to this. Maybe it makes me feel less alone in this. Comment below what city you're in, just so I know I'm not screaming into a void. I stood there in the kitchen, that small silver key burning a hole in my palm. The house was too quiet. I could hear the refrigerator humming, the clock ticking in the living room. Normal sounds that felt anything but normal. Chloe was still in the other room. I could picture her perfectly, sitting on our gray sofa, scrolling through her phone, completely unaware that my world had just shifted on its axis again. She had no idea what she'd almost thrown away with that car. My fingers closed around the key. It was cool and smooth. I tried to picture my mother's hands taping it under the sun visor. When would she have done that? During those last few months, when she knew? When the doctors had given her the timeline? She must have driven to the store, bought the masking tape, written my name in her delicate script, all while keeping this secret from me. I walked slowly to our home office, my footsteps echoing in the hallway. I needed to be alone. I closed the door behind me and sat at the desk, placing the key carefully on the polished wood surface. What did it open? My mind raced through possibilities. A locker at the bus station? A safe deposit box? A storage unit? My mother wasn't a wealthy woman. She'd been a librarian her whole life, but she was thoughtful, methodical. This wasn't random. I thought about the last time I saw her driving that car. It was about 2 weeks before she went into the hospital for the last time. She'd come over to bring us soup because Chloe had a cold. I'd walked her out to the Honda afterward, holding her arm even though she didn't need the help. She paused before getting in, her hand on the door handle. "You know I love you, Stephen," she'd said, her voice soft. "No matter what happens, you remember that." At the time, I thought she was just being emotional. Now I wondered if she was trying to tell me something more, if she was thinking about that key taped up above her head. I looked at the key again. There were numbers stamped on it. 217. No bank name, no company logo. Just those 3 digits staring back at me. The door to the office creaked open. Chloe stood there, her expression cautious. "Stephen, are you okay? You've been in here a while." I didn't look up from the key. "Did you ever sit in her car?" I asked, my voice quieter than I expected. She hesitated. "What?" "My mom's car. Did you ever just sit in it? After she was gone?" I heard her take a step into the room. "No. Why would I? It was just an old car, Stephen." It wasn't just an old car. I finally looked at her. Her face was confused, a little defensive. She genuinely didn't understand. That was the worst part. She couldn't see past the rust and the sputtering engine to what it represented. "What's that?" she asked, her eyes dropping to the key on the desk. "It's from the man who bought the car, David. He found it taped under the sun visor. My mom left it for me." Her face went pale. I watched the understanding dawn in her eyes, slow and painful. The practical consequences of her practical decision. "Oh," she said softly, I didn't know." "Of course you didn't know," I said, and my voice wasn't angry anymore. It was tired, empty. "You didn't ask, you didn't look, you just sold it." "Stephen, I was trying to help us move on. You're always so sad. I thought if the car was gone." "You thought I'd stop being sad about my dead mother?" I finished for her. She flinched. "That's not fair." "What's not fair is that I almost lost this forever, because you decided you knew what was best for my grief." I picked up the key again. It felt heavier now. "My mom left this for me. She knew she was dying, and she left me one last message, and you almost threw it in the trash." Chloe's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry. I really am. I didn't think." "That's the problem," I whispered. "You didn't think about me. You thought about space in the driveway. You thought about registration fees. You didn't think about what that car meant to me." She didn't have an answer for that. She just stood there, crying quietly, and part of me wanted to comfort her. But the larger part was still too raw, too wounded. I stood up, the key clenched in my fist. "I need to find out what this opens." "How?" she asked, wiping at her eyes. "There's no name on it, just numbers." "I'll start with her things," I said, moving past her toward the door. "The boxes from her house are in the basement. Maybe there's a clue there." I left her standing in the office and made my way downstairs. The basement was cool and smelled of damp concrete and memories. Against the far wall were stacked the cardboard boxes I hadn't been able to bring myself to go through yet. My mother's life, reduced to containers from Home Depot. The first box was full of photo albums. I sat on the cold floor and opened one. There she was, smiling at my college graduation, holding me as a baby, standing with my father before he passed. So many moments, so much history. I kept looking, box after box. Kitchen utensils, books, winter clothes. Nothing that mentioned a key or a locker. Then, in the last box, tucked between her favorite cookbook and a bundle of letters from my father, I found it. A small, leather-bound address book. I'd seen it on her desk for years, but never thought much about it. I flipped through the pages. Most entries were crossed out, friends who had moved or passed away. Then, in the back, on a page marked important, I saw it, written in her familiar handwriting. Storage, number 217, Lincoln Self-Storage, 734 West Addison Street, Chicago. My breath caught. Lincoln Self-Storage. That was just a 15-minute drive from here. She'd rented a storage unit. I looked at the date written next to the entry. 3 months before she died. She'd known she was running out of time. I sat there on the basement floor for a long time, just holding that address book. Upstairs, I could hear Chloe moving around, the sounds of our normal life continuing, even though nothing felt normal anymore. This key wasn't just about what my mother had left me. It was about what was happening between me and Chloe. The distance that felt like it was growing by the minute. The trust that had been broken. I thought about driving to the storage facility right then, but something stopped me. Maybe I wasn't ready. Maybe I needed to sit with this discovery for a little while, to prepare myself for whatever my mother had left for me in Unit 217. Or maybe part of me was afraid of what I might find. Afraid that whatever was in that storage unit would change everything again. I climbed the stairs slowly, the key and the address book in my hand. Chloe was waiting in the kitchen. She'd made coffee, my favorite mug sitting on the counter. "Did you find anything?" she asked, her voice tentative. I showed her the address book, my finger pointing to the entry. She had a storage unit. Chloe's eyes widened. "What do you think is in there?" "I don't know," I said honestly. But she went through the trouble of hiding the key. She wanted me to find it after she was gone. It must be important. She reached out, like she wanted to touch my arm, then pulled back. "Do you want me to come with you when you go?" I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I'd married 5 years ago, who used to laugh at my dumb jokes and hold my hand during scary movies. The woman who now felt like a stranger standing in our kitchen. "I don't know," I said quietly. And I meant it. The truth was, I didn't know if I wanted her there. I didn't know if I could share this moment with the person who had almost taken it away from me forever. I poured the coffee she'd made me and took a sip. It was perfect, just how I liked it. She still knew that much about me, but did she know the important things? Did she understand why I needed to sit in that old car sometimes? Why I couldn't just move on from my mother's death? The key felt heavy in my pocket. Tomorrow I would go to Lincoln Self-Storage. Tomorrow I would open Unit 217 and see what my mother had left for me. But tonight I had to figure out how to exist in this house, with this woman who loved me, but didn't understand me, who wanted to help me, but kept causing more pain. I looked at Chloe, at the hopeful, worried expression on her face, and I wondered if we could ever find our way back to each other, or if my mother's final gift would be the thing that finally showed me how far apart we drifted. I put the mug down. The coffee was too hot. Or maybe my hands were just too cold. Everything felt off, wrong, like the entire house was tilted at an angle, and only I could feel it. "I'm going to bed," I said. My voice sounded flat, empty. Chloe nodded, her eyes still shiny with unshed tears. "Okay." I walked past her without another word. I went upstairs and got ready for bed in the dark, moving by memory. Brush teeth, change clothes. When I slipped under the covers, the bed felt enormous. The space between us felt like a canyon. She came up about 20 minutes later. I pretended to be asleep. I listened to her quiet movements, the soft click of the lamp, the rustle of sheets as she settled in on her side of the bed. She didn't try to touch me. She didn't say goodnight. The silence in that room was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and thought about locker 217. What could possibly be in a storage unit that was so important? My mother didn't own anything valuable. Her most prized possession was that old car, and now that was gone too. My mind spun in circles, imagining treasures and secrets, but landing on nothing that made sense. The key was on my nightstand. Every time I rolled over, I saw its faint silver glint in the dark. A little piece of metal holding so much weight. When the first hint of gray light filtered through the blinds, I gave up on sleep. I got up quietly, dressed in the same jeans and t-shirt from yesterday, and picked up the key. It was time. I drove through the quiet, sleeping suburbs. The streets were empty. It felt like the whole world was holding its breath with me. Lincoln Self-Storage was a long, low building made of corrugated metal, painted a dull beige. It looked exactly like what it was, a place where people hid things they didn't know what to do with. The office was closed, but the gate was opened for 24-hour access. I drove through slowly, my tires crunching on the gravel. I looked at the numbers on the buildings, 100s, 200s. I found Building 2 and parked. My heart was hammering against my ribs. This was it, the end of the trail my mother had left for me. Unit 217 was a standard-sized garage door, identical to all the others. It looked impersonal, forgettable. I pulled the key from my pocket. My hand was shaking. I slid the key into the padlock. It fit perfectly. I turned it. The lock clicked open with a sound that echoed in the morning quiet. I took a deep breath. My hand on the cold metal handle. I lifted the door. It rattled upward, revealing the darkness inside. For a second, I couldn't see anything. Then my eyes adjusted. It wasn't filled with boxes. It wasn't furniture or old clothes. The unit was almost empty. In the center of the concrete floor, sitting alone, was a single wooden rocking chair, the one from my childhood nursery, the one my mother had rocked me in when I was a baby, the one she'd kept in her living room for years. And propped on the seat of the chair was a large, flat, rectangular object covered by a floral-patterned cloth. My feet felt rooted to the spot. This was so deliberate, so staged. She hadn't just stored things she didn't have room for. She had created a scene, a final message. I stepped inside. The air was cool and still, smelling of dust and old wood. I walked over to the rocking chair, my footsteps echoing. I reached out a hand and touched the back of the chair. It was smooth from years of use. I looked at the covered object. My throat was tight. Slowly, carefully, I lifted the cloth. Underneath was a painting, but not just any painting. It was a portrait of me, of my mother, and of my father, who died when I was 10. We were all together, sitting on the porch of the old house I grew up in. We looked happy, whole. It was a moment that had never happened, not like this. My father had been gone for years before we moved into that house with the porch. I stared at our faces. The artist had captured my mother's smile perfectly, the little crinkle by her eyes, my father's strong hands, me, as a young boy, leaning against my mother's knee. How? Why? Then I saw the signature in the bottom corner. It was my mother's. She had painted this. I never knew she could paint. She was a librarian. She loved books, not canvases. This was a secret talent, a hidden part of her I never got to see. Taped to the back of the canvas was a sealed envelope with my name on it. Her handwriting. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely open it. I slid my finger under the flap and tore it carefully. I unfolded the letter. The paper was thin. Her writing covered both sides. My dearest Stephen, if you're reading this, then you found the key. And that means I'm gone. I'm so sorry, my love. I'm so sorry I had to leave you. I started this painting after your father died. I was so lost. The grief was a physical pain. I thought I would never feel whole again. So I created a world where we were. Whole, I mean. The three of us. Together in a place we all loved. It took me years to finish. I'd work on it for an hour, then put it away for months when the hurt was too fresh. It's not a masterpiece, but it's my heart on a canvas. I'm leaving it for you because I want you to remember that love is what remains. Grief is just love with no place to go. Don't let your grief for me become a wall between you and the world. Don't let it push away the people who love you now. The car was a test, in a way. A silly one, maybe. I knew you'd have a hard time letting it go. I knew it would cause tension with Chloe. I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty. I'm telling you because I want you to fight for your happiness. Don't cling to my old sedan so hard that you lose the woman walking beside you now. Life is for the living, Stephen. I had a long, wonderful life full of love. Now it's your turn. Keep this painting. Look at it when you miss me. Remember that my love for you is in every brushstroke. It's forever. All my love. Now and always. Mom. I sank to my knees on the cold concrete. The letter fluttered from my hand. I put my face in my hands and finally, truly wept. Great, heaving sobs that came from a place so deep inside me I didn't know it existed. It wasn't just grief. It was relief. It was understanding. It was the weight of months of sorrow finally breaking open. She knew. She knew everything. She knew about my struggle. She knew about the fights with Chloe. She saw it all coming, and she left me a map back to myself. I cried until my throat was raw and my eyes burned. I cried for the mother I lost, for the father I barely remembered, for the wife I was pushing away, for the man I had become, stuck, sad, living in the past. When the tears finally subsided, I felt hollowed out, clean. I picked up the letter and folded it carefully, placing it back in the envelope. I looked at the painting again, at our three smiling faces. My mother's final gift wasn't a thing. It wasn't the key or the painting. It was permission. Permission to miss her, but also permission to live. Permission to love my wife without feeling like I was betraying her memory. I stood up, my legs shaky. I picked up the painting. It was lighter than I expected. I carried it out of the storage unit, leaving the rocking chair behind for now. I could come back for it. The morning sun was brighter now, warming my face. The world didn't feel tilted anymore. It felt possible. I drove home slowly, the painting lying carefully on the back seat. I didn't know what I would say to Chloe. I didn't have a plan. But for the first time in a long time, I wanted to try. I pulled into the driveway. Our driveway. The empty space where the Honda used to be was just a patch of concrete now. It didn't feel like a wound anymore. It just felt like space. I walked inside, carrying the painting. Chloe was in the kitchen, sipping coffee, her face pale and anxious. She saw the painting in my hands. Her eyes widened. "Stephen, what is that?" I set it down carefully, leaning it against the kitchen table. "It's from my mom," I said. My voice was hoarse from crying, but it was steady. She painted it. I didn't show her the letter. That was for me. But I told her what was in it. I told her about my mother's fear that I would let my grief isolate me. I told her about the permission to be happy. Chloe listened, her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face silently. "When I sold the car," she began, her voice trembling, I know, I said, cutting her off gently. I know you were trying to help. It was the wrong way. But I see the intention now. It wasn't a full forgiveness. Not yet. That would take time. The hurt was still there. A real, deep bruise. But the anger was gone. The blinding, suffocating anger had been washed away by my mother's words. I am so sorry, Stephen, she whispered. I know, I said again. I'm sorry too, for shutting you out. We stood there, in our sunny kitchen, with this beautiful, impossible painting between us. It was a start. A fragile, complicated start. My mother was right. It was never just a car. It was a connection. Not just to her, but to my own life, to the man I used to be, and the man I could still become. I looked at Chloe, really looked at her, and for the first time in months, I saw my wife. Not the enemy of my grief, but a partner in it. A woman who had made a terrible, clumsy mistake because she loved me and wanted my pain to end. The key had unlocked the storage unit, but my mother's love had unlocked something else entirely. It had unlocked me. If you've ever found a message you didn't know you needed, from someone you thought was gone forever, you know how this feels. It changes you. It's a second chance you never saw coming. I think we might be okay. It's going to be a long road. There's a lot to rebuild, but we have a place to start. And we have this painting, this beautiful, hopeful lie that tells the truest story I know, that love is what remains, always. The next few days were strange, quiet. Chloe and I moved around each other like polite roommates. We said please and thank you. We asked about each other's days. But the easy laughter was gone. The casual touches had vanished. The house felt like a museum of our former life. I propped the painting up on the mantel in the living room. Every time I walked past it, I'd stop for a second. I'd look at my parents' faces, at my own young, hopeful face. It was a comfort, a reminder of the love my mother was talking about. But it was also a challenge, a daily question. Are you living? Chloe looked at it too. I'd catch her staring at it when she thought I wasn't looking. Her expression was always a little sad, a little wistful. I think she was trying to understand, to see the family I came from and the grief she'd accidentally stepped on. A week after I found the painting, I came home from work to find her sitting on the floor in front of the fireplace. She had a cardboard box next to her. It was one of the last boxes of my mom's things from the basement. I'd been avoiding it. I thought, maybe we could go through this one together, she said, her voice soft, hesitant. Only if you want to. I stood in the doorway for a minute, just watching her. This was her trying. This was her speaking a language she thought I would understand. It wasn't selling my car. It was sitting with me in the mess. I walked over and sat down on the floor beside her. The carpet was rough under my hands. Okay, I said. Yeah, let's do it. She smiled, a small, relieved thing. She opened the box. It wasn't full of big, important stuff. It was the small things, the everyday debris of a life, a collection of mismatched coffee mugs, a stack of old cookbooks with handwritten notes in the margins, a small wooden box filled with buttons and thread. I picked up one of the cookbooks. It was her favorite chocolate chip cookie recipe. I could see a smudge of batter on the page. A memory hit me so hard, it stole my breath. Me, maybe 8 years old, standing on a stool next to her, carefully dropping chocolate chips into the bowl. Her telling me to save some for the cookies, not just for my mouth. She made the best cookies, I said, my voice thick. Chloe leaned over to look. I know, she whispered. She gave me the recipe once. Mine never turned out the same. We kept going. We found a bundle of letters tied with a ribbon. They were from my dad to her, from before they were married. I'd never seen them before. My hands shook a little as I untied the ribbon. The paper was fragile, the ink faded. I didn't read them out loud. That felt too private. But I let Chloe sit there with me as I read them silently. The words of a young man, desperately in love with the woman who would become my mother. He wrote about his dreams for their future, the house they'd build, the kids they'd have. It was another piece of the puzzle, another part of the story I never knew. My mother had kept these, all these years. Through his death, through raising me alone, she had kept these love letters in a box in the basement. When I finished, I carefully retied the ribbon. My eyes were stinging. Chloe's hand found mine on the carpet. She didn't say anything. She just laced her fingers through mine and squeezed. And I let her. I held her hand back. It was the first time we'd touched in weeks that didn't feel like an accident. We found a small felt jewelry bag at the bottom of the box. Inside was my mother's engagement ring. It wasn't fancy, a simple, small diamond on a gold band. I remembered her wearing it on a chain around her neck after my dad died. She never put it on her finger again. I held it in my palm. It was cold. She wanted you to have this, I said. The words came out before I even really thought about them, but as soon as I said it, I knew it was true. She wouldn't have kept it separate, tucked away like this, if she didn't. Chloe's breath hitched. Stephen, I can't. That's yours. It is mine, I agreed softly, and I want you to have it. I wasn't proposing. We were already married. This was different. This was an offering, a sign that I was letting her back in, that I trusted her with a piece of my history, a piece of my mother. She looked from the ring to my face, her eyes searching mine. She must have seen the sincerity there, the lack of anger. Slowly, she held out her hand. I slipped the ring onto her right ring finger. It was a little loose. She closed her fingers around it, holding it tight. Thank you, she whispered, her voice cracking. We didn't talk much after that. We just put the rest of the things back in the box. The ordinary mugs, the spools of thread. They felt different now. Less like relics of a lost life, and more like just things. Important, but not sacred. We could keep them or donate them. It was okay. That night we cooked dinner together. It was clumsy. We bumped into each other in our small kitchen. But we were laughing. A real, genuine laugh. It felt foreign in my chest, like a muscle I hadn't used in a long time. We ate at the table, with the painting watching over us. It didn't feel like it was judging me anymore. It just felt present. Later, in bed, she didn't stay on her side. She rolled over and put her head on my chest. Her hair smelled like the shampoo she's used for years. A familiar, comforting smell. I wrapped my arm around her and held her close. The silence in the room wasn't loud anymore. It was peaceful. I miss her too, you know, she said into the dark, her voice muffled against my shirt. She was like a mom to me. My own mom is so far away. Your mom, she was here. She taught me how to make her meatloaf because she knew you loved it. She was my friend. I tightened my arm around her. I hadn't thought about that. I'd been so wrapped up in my own loss, I didn't see hers. Chloe had lost a mother-in-law, yes, but she'd also lost a friend, a confidant, and then I'd made her the villain in my story of grief. I know, I said, kissing the top of her head. I'm sorry I forgot that. We lay there for a long time, just breathing together. The canyon between us in the bed was gone. It wasn't a magic fix. The car was still gone. The hurt from her selling it was still a tender spot. But the infection was gone. The wound could finally start to heal. My mother's letter was in my nightstand drawer. I didn't need to read it again. I had memorized it. Don't let your grief for me become a wall between you and the world. I was finally starting to tear that wall down, brick by painful brick. And Chloe was on the other side, waiting, not with a sledgehammer, but with her own bare hands, ready to help. The key, the car, the painting, it all led here, to this quiet moment in the dark. To the understanding that moving forward doesn't mean leaving someone behind. It means carrying them with you in a new way. I closed my eyes. For the first time since my mom died, I felt like I could sleep. I felt like I could dream about the future and not just live in the past. The next morning felt different. The sunlight through the blinds didn't feel harsh. It felt warm. I woke up and Chloe was still there, her head on my chest. She was still asleep. I didn't move. I just lay there and listened to her breathe. It was a sound I hadn't paid attention to in so long. A steady, quiet rhythm. A real person right here. We got up and made coffee. It wasn't the tense, silent routine it had been for months. We moved around the kitchen and it felt coordinated, like we were a team again. She handed me the sugar without me asking. I poured the milk into her mug, just how she likes it. Small things, but they felt huge. I looked at the painting over the mantel, my mom's painting, our little perfect, fictional family. I thought about what she said in the letter. Life is for the living. I was starting to understand what that meant. It didn't mean forgetting. It meant choosing to be here in this kitchen with this woman. I was thinking, Chloe said, breaking the quiet. She was holding her mug with both hands, looking at me over the rim. Maybe we could go away this weekend, just for a night, get out of this house. My first instinct was to say no, to make an excuse. Work, money, the usual walls I put up. But I stopped myself. I looked at her. She looked hopeful and a little scared I'd shut her down. Where were you thinking? I asked. She shrugged. I don't know. The coast? Just somewhere that isn't here. Somewhere with no memories. Somewhere with no memories. I got that. This house was full of ghosts. The empty spot in the driveway. The chair my mom always sat in when she visited. We needed a blank slate, even for just a day. Yeah, I said. Okay, let's do it. The smile she gave me was like the sun coming out from behind a cloud. It was real. It reached her eyes. Really? Really. We spent the next couple of days planning it. It was fun. We looked at maps on our phones, arguing playfully about beach towns versus the mountains. We settled on a small, quiet town up the coast. We found a little inn that looked old and cozy. It felt like we were dating again. There was a lightness between us that I thought was gone forever. Friday came. We packed a small bag and got in the car. As I backed out of the driveway, I glanced at the empty space where the Honda used to be. It didn't hurt this time. It just was. It was a fact. The car was gone. My mom was gone. But I was still here. Chloe was still here. The drive was beautiful. We had the windows down, the cool sea air whipping through the car. We didn't talk much. We just listened to music, an old playlist we used to love, songs from when we first met. I reached over and held her hand. Her fingers curled around mine. It felt solid, good. We got to the inn in the afternoon. It was just like the pictures, a big white house with a wide porch, right on a cliff, overlooking the ocean. Our room was small and simple, a big bed, a wooden floor, and a window that looked right out at the water. You could hear the waves. We dropped our bags and just stood at the window for a minute, watching the sea. It was endless, powerful. It made our problems feel small. "We should go for a walk," Chloe said. We walked down a path to the beach. The sand was cold under our feet. The wind was strong, pulling at our clothes and hair. We walked for what felt like miles, not saying a word, just walking side by side, our shoulders sometimes brushing. Then she stopped. She turned to me, her hair a wild mess around her face. "I need to say something," she shouted a little over the wind. My stomach tightened. Was this it? Was this where the other shoe dropped? "I was wrong," she said, her voice clear and strong. "I was so wrong to sell that car. It wasn't my place. It wasn't my memory to handle. I thought I was helping you. I thought I was pulling you out of a hole, but I was just being impatient. I was scared of your sadness. I thought if I could just get rid of the car, I could get rid of the sadness. But it doesn't work like that. I see that now." The wind whipped her words away, but I heard every one. They hit me right in the chest. "I'm not asking you to say it's okay," she continued. "I just need you to know that I know. I know how badly I messed up, and I am so sorry, Stephen, for all of it." I looked at her, really looked at her. Standing there on this vast empty beach, she looked so small, so vulnerable. She was apologizing for the one thing I had finally, because of my mom, been able to let go of. "I know you are," I said. I had to raise my voice too. "And I forgive you." Her eyes widened. She hadn't expected that. Not so soon. Not so completely. "You? You do?" "Yeah," I said. I took a step closer to her. The wind was howling, but it felt like the world had gone quiet, just for us. My mom, her letter, it made me see it differently. You weren't trying to hurt me. You were trying to save me. You just used the wrong tool for the job. A tear escaped her eye and traced a path down her wind-chapped cheek. "I miss her so much." "I know you do," I said, and I finally, truly believe that she did. "I'm sorry I didn't see that before. I was so lost in my own head." We stood there for a long moment, just looking at each other. Then I reached out and pulled her into a hug. It wasn't a careful hug. It was a real one. I held her tight, my face buried in her wind-tangled hair. She held on to me just as tightly, her arms around my waist. We stood there on that beach, holding each other up against the wind, and for the first time, it felt like we were both on the same side again. The side of us. We walked back to the inn as the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. We were quiet, but it was a good quiet, a peaceful one. We got some food from a little seafood shack and ate it on the porch of our room, wrapped in a blanket, watching the stars come out. That night in the strange bed, we didn't just sleep. We talked. In the dark, with the sound of the ocean as our background music, we talked about everything we'd been avoiding. We talked about my mom, the good memories, the hard ones from her sickness. We talked about how scared we both were, me of forgetting, her of being forgotten. We talked until our voices were hoarse. We cried a little. We laughed a little too. It was like lancing a wound. It was painful, but all the poison finally came out. When we fell asleep, we were tangled up together. There was no space between us, no canyon in the bed, just warmth. The next morning, we drove home. The drive back felt different from the drive there, lighter. The silence was comfortable. We were both lost in our own thoughts, but they weren't sad thoughts. They were planning thoughts, future thoughts. When we pulled into the driveway, the empty space was still there, but it didn't feel like a ghost anymore. It just felt like a parking spot. We went inside. The house didn't feel like a museum anymore. It felt like a house. Our house. I walked over to the mantel and looked at the painting. I saw it with new eyes. It wasn't a reminder of a past I'd lost. It was a promise of a love that lasts, a love that can guide you, even from the other side. Chloe came and stood beside me. She slipped her hand into mine. "We're gonna be okay," I said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. She squeezed my hand. "Yeah," she said, "we are. It's been a few months now. The ring my mom left is on a chain around Chloe's neck. She wears it every day. We don't talk about the car much anymore. It's part of our history, but it doesn't define our present. We still have bad days. Grief isn't a straight line. Some days the missing her hits me out of nowhere. But now, when it does, I don't push Chloe away. I let her in. I let her hold me. And she lets me do the same for her. My mother's final gift wasn't the key, or the painting, or even the letter. It was the roadmap. She knew the terrain of my heart better than I did. She knew I'd get lost in the grief. She left me a way to find my way back, back to my life, back to my wife. The car is gone, but what it held, that's still here. It's in this house. It's in the way Chloe makes coffee now, a little stronger, the way my mom liked it. It's in the recipe for chocolate chip cookies that we finally perfected together. It's in the love that remained, just like she said it would. It was never just a car. It was a key, and it unlocked the rest of my life. I stood in the driveway this morning, sipping my coffee. The sun was warm on my face. That empty space where the Honda used to sit, it's just concrete now. We're thinking about putting a bench there. Maybe some flowers. Something alive. Chloe came out and stood beside me. She didn't say anything. She just leaned her head against my shoulder. I put my arm around her. We stood there like that for a long time, watching the neighborhood wake up. It's funny how things change. How a single object can almost break you and then end up saving you. That car, my mom's old blue sedan, it sat there for months after she died, a monument to my grief. Every time I looked at it, my chest would get tight. I'd see her getting out of it, grocery bags in her hands. I'd hear her laugh. It was a ghost and I was its keeper. And then Chloe sold it. I came home from work and it was just gone. The space it left behind was huge, a void. I remember the feeling. It wasn't just anger. It was a deep, cutting betrayal. That car was the last tangible piece of my mother, the last thing that still smelled like her perfume, and she'd gotten rid of it without even asking me. We fought. God, did we fight. The silence that fell between us after that was worse than any shouting. We moved through the house like strangers. We slept in the same bed, but there was a canyon between us. I was so sure our marriage was over. How do you come back from that? Then the envelope came. No return address. Just my name, handwritten. My hands shook when I opened it. Inside was a single, worn key and a note from the man who bought the car. He'd found it, taped under the glove compartment while he was cleaning it out. He thought I might want it. A key. To what? I had no idea. That key started everything. It led me to a storage unit I never knew my mom had rented. Inside was a painting, a beautiful, perfect painting of our family. Me, Chloe, my mom, all together, happy. A family that never actually existed in that way. It was her dream for us, her hope. And beneath the painting was a box, a simple cardboard box. Inside were her things, ordinary things, a coffee mug, some old thread, and a letter. A letter she wrote to me before she died. I've read that letter 100 times. The paper is soft now from my fingers. She told me she was sorry for leaving. She told me to take care of Chloe. She told me that life is for the living, and she told me not to let my grief for her become a wall between me and the world. I had built that wall, brick by brick, and Chloe was on the other side. Finding that box, reading her words, it changed something in me. It was like she reached through time and handed me a flashlight in a dark room. I started to see things differently. I saw that Chloe wasn't trying to hurt me. She was trying to save me. She saw me drowning in my sadness, clinging to a broken-down car, and she did the only thing she could think to do. She removed the thing she thought was pulling me under. She used the wrong tool. But her heart was in the right place, and I saw that she was grieving too. My mom wasn't just my mother. She was Chloe's friend, her confidant. When I was pushing Chloe away, I was making her mourn alone. That weekend trip to the coast was the turning point. Standing on that windy beach, hearing her apologize, really apologize, it was like the final piece clicked into place. I forgave her, truly forgave her. And since then, we've been rebuilding. It's not always easy. Some days the sadness still washes over me. I'll see an older woman in the grocery store with the same haircut my mom had, and my breath will catch. But now I turn to Chloe and say, I'm having a mom moment, and she'll just hold my hand. She understands. We talk about her now. We tell stories. We laugh about the time she tried to teach me to drive in that old Honda, and I almost backed into the mailbox. We keep her alive in our words, not in a stationary object in our driveway. The painting hangs in our living room. I look at it every day. It's not a reminder of what I lost. It's a promise of the love that is still here. The love between me and Chloe. The love my mom had for both of us. That key didn't just open a storage unit. It unlocked us. It unlocked me. I thought losing that car was the end of my connection to my mother. But it was just the beginning of understanding what that connection really means. It isn't stored in metal and upholstery. It's stored in here. I tap my chest, in my heart, and in the life I choose to live with the woman I love. The car is gone, but my mom, she's everywhere. She's in the way Chloe hums that old song she loved while she cooks. She's in the resilience of our marriage, which is stronger now than it was before all of this. She's in the quiet peace I feel when I wake up in the morning. She was right. It was never just a car. It was a vessel. It carried her groceries. It carried me to school. And in the end, it carried a secret that brought me back to myself. It brought me back to my wife. The story ends here, with me, standing in my driveway, my wife's hand in mine, finally understanding that the past is a place to visit, not a place to live. My mom's final gift was showing me the way home. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever held on to something too tight or found a second chance where you least expected it, let me know. Hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe for more. Thanks for being here with me. It means everything.